Hello, my name is Carrie and welcome to Wearables and Shareables. Today we're going to be doing part 2 in our video series of how to create the Purple Mountains Majesty project bag using Tunisian Crochet. So first let's talk about what we learned in part 1. And of course if you haven't seen part 1 yet, check the info card or the description for a link to that video before watching this one. Last time we learned how to build a foundation chain, how to create a Tunisian knit stitch, how to change colors on the return pass, and how to change colors on the forward pass. We also learned a little bit about the structure of Tunisian crochet stitches, where we have horizontal bars at the top and bottom, and we have some vertical bars. One is called the front bar because it lays in front of the other, and one is called the back bar, of course, because it lays behind the other one. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about how to read patterns in Tunisian crochet and how to complete a Tunisian purl stitch. Now, a lot of people, when they think about reading a pattern for crochet, knitting, or Tunisian crochet, they get a little bit nervous. But really, I'm here to tell you that the only difficult part about reading a pattern is usually the abbreviations the pattern designer chooses to use in their pattern writing. So let's take a look at some of the abbreviations that I've chosen to use. In my written pattern here, you can see that I have a little abbreviations key. I've abbreviated foundation chain with FC, back loop only with BLO, forward pass with FP, and on and on and on. So if I look back at our learning from yesterday, some of these letters might start to make a little bit more sense. All I've done in my pattern is taken the titles and condensed them into the first letter only for each part of that title. So foundation chain is abbreviated FC. Tunisian knit stitch is abbreviated TKS. When I want you to change colors only on the return pass, I've abbreviated that as CCRP. And when I want you to change colors on the forward pass, I've abbreviated that as CCFP. Now, other pattern designers may have chosen different abbreviations, but usually there'll be some kind of key that lets you know what all of these abbreviations mean. So if you ever get confused, look in your pattern for an abbreviation key or some kind of glossary that will explain what kind of stitches you'll be doing in your pattern. And another important piece of information that we'll need for pattern reading is what each color is called in the pattern. Because instead of writing out Lily Lollipop, White Lion, and Toucan Bay, they're usually going to name the colors A, B, and C, and so on if there are more colors, because that's just generally easier for writing the pattern. Condensing those terminology into smaller chunks makes it easier for the pattern designer to write and makes it easier for the reader to read. So let's take a look at some things in this written pattern that will also support you while you are reading. In my pattern, I have included a stitch guide so that if you don't remember what kind of stitch you need to do or how to complete that in Tunisian crochet, you can refer to this little guide here. It will tell you the definition of what that stitch is, give you a picture from this project, and an illustration to help you identify the parts of the stitches. So this is really handy if you ever get stuck. Refer to that little chart here. And then we have a lot of written directions. Okay, so this might look scary, but all I've done here is translate the chart that we've been using into letters, because some people prefer to look at things in written version instead of on a chart, or if you're using different colors for your pattern, my chart might not make very much sense to you. So when we left off last time, we had completed the forward pass for row number 3. So let's see if we can use our written instructions to complete the return pass for row number 3. So let's take a look here and see how our written instructions are laid out. We have a row counter, and then it says forward pass and return pass, and I've given some notes about the color changes. I talked to you about all of these things when we were doing our work last time, so you should be familiar with these things. But when you get the written pattern, you can take a look at that little direction there. So here's row 1 where we completed our foundation chain. Here's row 2 where we learned how to change colors on the return pass. And here we are at row number 3. So let's just quickly review what we did in row 3. With color A, and for that pattern, or for this pattern, this is our purple color. With color A, we used the Tunisian knit stitch for stitches 2 through 12. And again, I can refer back to my chart to make sure that that is correct. If I look at my chart here, I've got row number 2. I did stitches 1 through 12 in purple. Okay, and then I changed to white for stitches 13, 14, and 15. So let's see how the pattern explains that. With color A, we did 2 through 12, CCFP, or change colors on the forward pass with color B. In my pattern, that is the white color for stitches 13 through 15. So that matches the same information that we're getting from the chart. It's just using letter abbreviations instead of the little pictorial chart. And then we continued on with the rest of the row. So if we jump down here, or over here to the return pass, let's take a look at what it says here. It says CCRP, or change colors return pass with color B for stitches 29, 28, 15 through 13. So let's break that down a little bit. We know that CCRP stands for change colors on the return pass. CCRP. Change colors on the return pass for stitches 29 through 28. So if I were to pull up my chart, I should see white boxes at stitch number 29 and 28. Here they are here. And at stitches 15 through 13. And I've written them in the order that they appear on the chart because remember, our stitches maintain their number until we get to the addition of the handle later in the pattern. But what color are we supposed to use in conjunction with these color changes? When I wrote the pattern, I assumed that you would be continuing with the color you were using unless otherwise noted. So here we can see that we were using purple when we completed our forward pass. So on our return pass, we're also going to be using purple. So in some places, I just told you where the color changes are, and I didn't tell you that you need to use the purple to do those stitches because it should match what is on your Tunisian crochet hook from your forward pass for the most part. So let's go ahead and review how to do a return pass using row 3 as our example. So remember that we always chain 1 to start a return pass and that we're going to be counting backwards to keep track of what stitch numbers we're at. So when I do my chain 1, that's stitch number 35. I'll pull through 2 now. This will be stitch number 34, 33, 32, 31. And if I look at my written pattern, I need to change at 29 to white. So I'll keep going here for a second. Here is stitch number 30, and now I'm going to be ready to change colors. So I'll just drop my purple down so that it lays behind my work, pick up my white. It should be right here since I used it on my forward pass to get to this point. Here's stitch number 29 and stitch number 28. And then I'm going to be changing back to purple until I get to this color change all the way down here at stitch number 15. So that was 28. I'll pick up my purple again to complete stitches 27, 26, oops, make sure you get through both of your loops there, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, just manage my a little bit, 19, 18, 17, and 16. And my written pattern here says that I need to change colors at stitch 15 through 13. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got my white sitting here where I used it on my forward pass. So here's stitch 15, 14, 13. Now that that's done, I can pick up my purple again and work until I only have one loop on my hook. So this is stitch 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So my written directions should match exactly what this chart is showing you. So you can use either or you can use both in conjunction to work the pattern either way. All right, so if we look at our chart here, as I said, we've already learned how to do our forward and return passes and how to change colors on both the forward and return pass. So we don't see anything new in the pattern until we get up here to row number 16, it looks like. We've got some different symbols in there. So let's go back and review the key for our chart to see what those symbols are asking us to do. So if we pop over here, we can see that this says that we need to change colors on the forward pass. Well, we know how to do that. All we're going to do is insert our hook and yarn over with the new color that we need, okay? You've been doing that already when you've completed rows 1 through 3. So I'm not going to show you that technique. So let's keep looking in our pattern for something we haven't learned yet. The next new thing doesn't appear until we get up here to row number 26. If we look here on our key, we can see that that little dot in there means that we need to complete a Tunisian purl stitch. So let's think again about the structure of our stitches and how they work. We've got our front and back vertical bars and our horizontal bars at the top and bottom of our stitches. And when we completed our Tunisian knit stitch, we just inserted our hook through the front and back vertical bars before yarning over and pulling up our loop. But a Tunisian purl stitch works differently. We're only going to be inserting our hook through the front vertical bar, and we need to move our yarn to the front of our work before we can work the stitch. So I'm not going to complete on my little sample here all the rows between row number 3 and row number 16. So at this point I'm going to stop following the pattern just so that I can show you how to complete those Tunisian purl stitches so that you can work at your own pace. Now here again is the structure of our stitches. I've got my front and back vertical bars, and where our Tunisian purl stitch differs again is that instead of inserting our hook between those front and back vertical bars, I'm just going to be inserting the hook into the front vertical bar. That's right here. So if I just sneak my hook under that bar, that is part 1 of the stitch. But I also need to have my yarn in front of the work. So there are a few different ways to do that. You could insert your hook and then pull this yarn to the front, or what I like to do is take my hook, snag it on that working yarn, and then insert my hook into the front vertical bar. So you just play around with that, see which way feels most comfortable to you, but I will give you a tip that you need to hold your thumb on your working yarn here in order to provide enough tension for you to be able to yarn over and pull up your loop. Okay, so this is a Tunisian purl stitch. Let's do that again. I'm going to put my hook behind my working yarn, find my front vertical bar, insert my hook just into that front vertical bar. I'll hold that working yarn with my thumb, yarn over, and pull my loop through. So if we look at our little diagram of the stitch here, what we're doing is inserting our hook this direction and then yarning over with our yarn in front of the work. So this will be what will represent our working yarn. And remember that it's in front of our work before we can yarn over and pull up that loop. So let's take a look at what this texture does to our finished project. These here are Tunisian knit stitches. They look very similar to regular knitting stitches with the little V's working their way up. But these here in the clouds are Tunisian purl stitches. Because we moved the yarn to the front of the work before yarning over and pulling up our loop, it gives this really interesting stitch texture, which I think is great for the clouds in our finished work here. So if we pop back over to our chart here, we can see that really the only kind of stitch work that we're doing in this project, on the chart at least, is Tunisian purl stitches and Tunisian knit stitches here. So now that you know how to change colors and do Tunisian knit and purl stitches, you can complete almost the entire project all by yourself. But there are some things that you might need to know when you go to work the handle and how to construct the bag when you're finished. So meet me back here for video 3 in our series of how to make this super cute Purple Mountains Majesty bag, and I'll show you how to connect both sides and seam them together. Please leave me any questions or comments you have down in the comment section, and I'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.